What's going on, guys? On another live Tales from the Comments, we're going to be talking about your guys' comments on our video about why Marvel superheroes never age. We're going to be talking about why DC Comics characters don't as well, and also the correct pronunciation of Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. Let's get right into it. So the very first comment I want to address comes from John Delorenzo and a lot of other people who were talking about on our video about why Marvel superheroes never age. I addressed the comic Spidey, the new Marvel comic Spidey, and people were confused. Like, is this really canon? If so, it gets a lot of information wrong. It has to do a million retcons in order for this to actually be canon. Which, I mean, it is Marvel, right? We've seen precedent for retcons in the past, so it's not that big of a deal. For example, Gwen Stacy meeting Parker in high school in this comic book when I think originally she met him in college, which is, you know, kind of a weird retcon to do just for the sake of the story, but hey, whatever. But here's the thing, even though Marvel has never said anything about it explicitly being in or out of continuity, I think that means we can say that it's in continuity. But even if that's not the case, the point I was trying to make still stands, because there have been other comics like Amazing Spider-Man 1.1 Learning to Crawl, where we see his origin retold again with modern day technology like smartphones anyway. So, and that is canon. Even if the Spidey one isn't. So, you know, even if the comic I was citing then turns out, which again, we have no information either way, but if it turns out that it's not canon, then we still at least have other examples that we can pull from to kind of support the basic idea that I was trying to go for. So, moving off of that, we have NilsFilms, who along with a lot of people, we're asking about, there's some sort of ratio of time, right? There's got to be like 4 years of our time is 1 year of Marvel time, or 3 years of our time, 1 year of Marvel time. Like, this is something that's pretty common on the internet to hear. A lot of people saying, like, you know, X amount, you know, 3-to-1 ratio or whatever, what have you. But there is no specific amount. Different Marvel editors-in-chief have come up with, you know, different ratios depending on, you know, whenever they're in charge. Some people will say 3, some 4. I've heard 10 at one point, which doesn't seem right to me. So there is no solid number for this one. Marvel time is just kind of like, what have you know, just kind of guess. There's no strict number. I wish there was. That would make things a lot easier. But as of right now, I don't think there is like a specific ratio of our years to Marvel years, but that would be pretty convenient. Moving off of that, we're going to go to Keiley K and Sarcastic Duck and a bunch of other people who are like, well, you talked about Marvel in this video a lot. Where's the love for DC? How do DC comic characters age? Or how does the timeline in that universe work? And it is a bit confusing. So I think originally they were kind of like Marvel, where they had a sliding time scale, like back in the Gold and Silver Age stuff. But then they just went on for too long, you know? And so they had to do constant reboots to keep their characters young. And that's kind of where they're stuck at right now. I say stuck, I don't know, it's probably, you know, not a big deal. I don't particularly mind it. But yeah, that seems to be what DC's whole thing is right now, is if they'll start to try and age characters in real time, quote unquote, and if they get too old, then they'll just, you know, oh, another universe-ending event, and which means we gotta, like, change up the time continuity, and boom, reboots. Everyone's young again. Solid. Which, I mean, some people like this, some people don't like it. I personally love what they did with the New 52, so I don't think I can argue and say that's a terrible thing to do. I find Marvel's continuous continuity of, you know, trying to fit everything into one universe to be a bit cumbersome and a bit overwhelming and chaotic at times, and I like the reboots that DC's doing, but I think it's just personal preference, right? So, but I think for the most part, that's kind of what DC likes to do, is reboot the universe whenever their heroes start getting a little gray. We're going to move off of this video, though, and we're going to move on to the alter ego that we had last week. If you didn't see it, it is about one of my favorite stories in all of Marvel Comics. It's about how they came up with the name Uru for the metal of Thor's hammer. It is such a fun story. DK did an amazing job on it. Definitely go check it out after you're watching this. Links, as always, are in the description down below. But we have a couple comments. The ones that stood out the most were about the, correct pronunciation of Mjolnir, as I'm sure a lot of you foreign people out there are listening to me and DK pronounce it. You're probably cringing about how we pronounce it wrong. But the thing, and DK wanted me to address this. So basically, there are, I kind of take it from the perspective of, as long as we know what we're talking about, as long as you and I both know what we're addressing, then it doesn't matter if the pronunciation is a little bit off. There are some sorts of sounds that don't really exist in other, cultures and languages, or are just hard to say and hard to pronounce because we haven't been, coded or taught or what have you. And, at the end of the day, you might think it's weird us pronouncing it the way that we do, but it also works kind of in reverse, where if we pronounce it the way that you guys want us to pronounce it, then it sounds weird to us, and I guess we're just never going to reach a consensus there. DK used the example comfortable, whereas the correct spelling of it, and maybe the correct pronunciation of it, is comfortable. It's just easier and it sounds better just to say comfortable, even though that's not 100% accurate. But yeah, I mean, I always say, as long as we understand what we're all talking about, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. It's a made-up thing. They're all just characters and stories that are fictional, so no need to get all uptight about that. But I think that's gonna do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for your comments, as always. I always love talking to you guys, and I love doing these live Tales videos. We'll just, before we go, we have a new podcast out. Oh, and actually it's not out right now, but it will be out later this week. It's all about, it's Bryce, Chris, and myself just chatting, having a good time, having a fun time. That's the NerdSync podcast, as always, is on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, all of those places. You can find it. Links will always be in the description of every single video that you see. If you missed any of the videos we talked about, we're also going to have them linked in the description as well. Lots of information down there, guys. Go check it out, definitely, for sure. And I will see you guys on Wednesday for another episode of Comic Misconceptions, kind of a philosophical one. Maybe will make you have a slight existential crisis, so that'll be fun. Until then, see ya.